So what got you interested in dogs, and what led you to choose the Pit Bull Terrier?
Well, nothing really got me interested in them. I was born with them. My dad got his first American Pit Bull Terrier when I was a baby, maybe not even 1 year old, back in Kansas when we lived in Nebraska. And then I've basically been around hundreds of them ever since. When I was a kid, my dad was pretty involved in sporting dogs for a period of time, in the early 80s mostly, early to mid 80s. And then he kind of got out of dogs and went more with racehorses. My dad's kind of what you might call, and he would not like to even say this, but he's kind of like a horse whisperer. He would train racehorses, and he could manage horses that lots of other people failed at. But he'd always, even after he got out of dogs, he always kept a few as pets, and he still has a couple to this day. But I've always loved this breed of dog, and for the most part, I've always kept them as pets myself. But I've always had one with me everywhere I've been in the last 40-something years. I used to take my little niece to the dog show at the Beaver State Club for a lot of years in a row.
What is the Beaver State Club?
So the American Dog Breeders Association, which was one of the main registries that started registering the American Pit Bull Terrier back in the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. They have clubs all over the world, really, and all over the United States. And the Beaver State Club is the Oregon club, and it's one of the oldest clubs. I'm pretty sure the oldest or the second oldest. It's right up there. And every year they would hold a sanctioned event, conformation show, and weight pull. And I would take my little niece just for something fun to do. She had a little dog that, it was my dog, but it was her dog. And a little 30-pound little female off Wild Sides Vader, a little bat-eared dog. And she would show her in junior handlers and the fun classes that they held. And, it was just a lot of fun. And I'd always kept, a handful of dogs, maybe 5 or 6. When we moved into this house, I think we had about 4, and they slowly kind of died off of old age. So when my son was about 2 years old, the last dog that we had remaining, the little Wild Side female that we had I think she was 12 when she passed. She died a little earlier than a lot of them do, but she had cancer and everything. But so it was the first time in my life that I hadn't had a dog in the house, and it was pretty sad, and I knew I didn't want to raise my son without a dog. So that was the summer of 2016, it must have been. And so September is the Beaver State Club's annual show. So I thought, well, we'll just go to the show. We hadn't been in a few years, and see if we can find somebody that's got a pup for sale or whatever. And when we got there, they had something going on that I'd never seen. It was called the Top Dog event, and it was a 3-part athletic event consisting of a 2-minute treadmill sprint and a vertical wall climb and a lure chase. And I'd never seen anything like it before, and I thought, oh my God, I want to get a dog and I want to do this. So I talked to the people that were running the event about getting a pup from them possibly. And they didn't have any, but they said they did do a lot of breedings in the winter and to contact them in the spring. So I contacted them in the spring, and they hadn't had any litters apparently, but he was actually going to purchase a pup from Mickey Smith in Texas, who breeds sorrells dogs. He'd gotten the last
100%. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, so he'd taken over Bert Sorrell's line several years ago. I think it's probably been 15 or 16 years now. And so he was going to be buying a pup, and he said that he would talk to Mickey and see about if I wanted to get a pup, we could get him and they could come over together. So I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to. And I talked to Mickey, and he thought that would be great. And so we got the pups up here to Oregon, and I was so excited. And so I thought, well, we're going to start doing dog shows.
Well,
and
how many pups did you buy?
Well, I just bought one. So I bought a female, and he had a male. And there was another pup that came and went to someone else off of he had another bloodline, I think a Carver bloodline, that somebody else, a friend of this guy here in Oregon, that transported the pups. So 3 of them came together, but I only got one.
Okay.
At that particular time. But she was an amazing little pup. Just beautiful personality, beautiful conformation. I was going to get into this top dog thing. And it was still pretty new at that point in time, and it still really is. But, the first thing I needed to do was get this dog to some shows. So when she turned 4 months, the closest show to us was up in Canada. So we went up to Canada, and you could only do conformation, obviously, from 4 months on. At 9 months, they're old enough to compete. But a lot of times that seems a little too young to me. But anyway, so we went up to Canada for our first show. Then I think we went to the Oregon show, which was in September. And then Nationals. So Nationals was in Colorado that year. So we packed up the puppy and my little son, who was 3 at the time, and drove 2 days to Colorado. And she took a first place in her class at Nationals and a best puppy. And I was just happy as can be. And so anyway, so the winter came and there were no more shows. And so I thought, well, we'll just start getting her exposed to some of these things. So I'd had an old carpet mill that my dad built like 40 years ago, and just started kind of putting her on that and getting her used to it. And my husband and I started building a wall, and we just started with a piece of plywood and leaned it up against our deck and had her kind of go up the side. And we had no idea what we were doing really with that. But once she was able to get up and over it, leaned up across our deck, we put 2 pieces together. He built a wall. He's a welder, so he's pretty handy with that sort of thing. And
right,
we started training for wall climb. And back then you had to catch the dogs. Like, you had them run up the wall and then somebody had to catch them, which was pretty dangerous. And so we had a lot of bumps, bruises, cuts, scrapes, sprained fingers, wrists, things like that. But that's the way we had to do it when we first started. But thankfully, they came up with a safety harness system pretty soon after we got into it, which has made things so much better.
I gotcha.
So I think her first competition, she was about 15 months. No, she was just over a year. So she's about 13 months. And so her first competition was in Utah at the Ralph Greenwood Memorial. And so Ralph Greenwood, if you don't know, is
ADBA.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was the guy that bought the ADBA back in the early 70s. So the Greenwood family still owns and runs it. So every year they have a memorial show. And so we attended that. That was her first top dog event. And it was great. I think she placed sixth. And I was pretty happy with that for her first time out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had gotten another dog shortly after that. So we started competing with two dogs. This dog that we got afterward, she was a year old when we got her, but a great athlete. So we started traveling around with two dogs,
Now,
competing.
what was the bloodline of the second dog?
So she's pretty heavy Grand Champion blackjack stuff. She's a real tiny little black female, just a crazy little thing. She was a great top dog also, and then she got herself hurt. She got her leg in the line of the lure course one day and cut a tendon, and it took a long time to heal, and she just never been the same since. So it sucked a lot. So we are super careful nowadays when we run the lure course, and ever since that day I'm like, okay, we got to be really paying attention to this, because you can get a dog hurt for good doing that.
Right. So so let me ask you this. What is your favorite activity right now as far as what you got your pit bulls involved in?
So I think Top Dog is still my favorite.
What is Top Dog exactly?
So Top Dog is an ADBA event, and it consists of 3 athletic events. It's an endurance event. So it starts with a 2-minute treadmill sprint for distance. And then it moves on to a vertical wall climb. And then it's followed by a lure chase, which can be either a straight chase or an oval course. And if they don't have the equipment to do that, then they can do what's called a drag sled, which I've never had to do, but apparently it has happened in the past. But so the dogs are broken into groups, 3 groups. There has to be at least 6 dogs. I've never seen that few, so there has to be at least 2 groups of 3. Typically there are 3 groups. Every event I've ever been to, there have been 3 groups. So they're divided as equally as possible by weight, starting from smallest to largest. And they compete basically against the dogs in their own group for points, and then those points are tallied for an overall. I think we need to, at the convention next year, talk about some rule changes, because I think there are definitely some tweaks that need to be made, but it's kind of a starting point for a newer sport. The rule changes that I would like to see are either no groups, because there have been many instances where a dog that did not perform as well as another dog in the competition placed higher because of how the rules are right now. In case in point, in Colorado this year, I competed with 3 dogs. And one of my dogs performed great. I mean, they all performed great, but one of them performed exceptionally well. And had the scores been tallied by overall performance across the board, no groups, he would have placed first every single day. But due to there being groups, he placed second every day, which is still great. But on one of those days, my other dog, who is 1 year old and is a puppy, a daughter of my other dog, Vinny, who placed second every day, beat him. She took a first and he took a second, even though he actually outperformed her in every single event, which to me is, so they divide them into, let's just say 3 groups, because there's always 3 groups. There's never been 2, because it's never going to be 6 dogs showing up, I don't think. But so in Colorado, the first night on Friday night, there were 31 dogs, I believe. So there were 2 groups of 10 and a group of 11 dogs. Mm-hmm. And so each of those groups, so they'll each go on the treadmill and place first, second, third, and they'll get 25 points for first, 20 for second, 15 for third, and so on and so forth. And then the same for wall climb and the same for the lure chase. So even if a dog in group A beats every single dog in its group, so say it now has 75 points because it beat every dog in its group, but a dog in group B might have got a second, a first, a third, who knows what, and has less than 75 points. Mm-hmm. But it may have done better in every event than that dog in group A that took first in every category. So to me, when you're talking about a sport called top dog, ideally you should be scoring based on performance, because I don't really think that the weight of a dog comes into play all that much when you're talking about these types of things, which are mostly running, on a treadmill, on a lure course, mm-hmm. and then climbing a wall. Yeah. And I don't really know the actual reason. I haven't heard it straight from the horse's mouth, but what I've been told by people that have been doing it longer than me is that the reason why they made the groups is so that the smaller dogs would have, not be disadvantaged. Mm-hmm. And I've seen dogs from every single group do well. I've seen 35-pound dogs climb 13 feet on the wall, and I've seen 60-pound dogs climb 13 feet on the wall. Okay. From all of the shows and events that I've attended, I haven't seen the size of a dog be a huge contributing factor to their ability. It's mostly the individual dog's ability and the owner handler's ability to condition that dog. And, of course, that dog's want and desire to do it, I think, is one of the main things that 100%. Comes into play.
Based on performance, what is your favorite bloodline that you've seen thus far that is consistent?
Well, I'll have to say, there are a lot of them out there. I don't know if I can pick a specific bloodline. I'm really loving these sorrells dogs. I mean, I have 3 of them now, and every single one of them is smart. They will do anything you ask of them. They have amazing drive, talent. I'm really loving them, and they are the purest bloodline that I have. But I have a lot of dogs that you might even call scatterbred that are, wonderful performing dogs. So, it's hard to say.
So okay. So the pedigree, okay, and I've heard this a lot, and I'm no mm-hmm. expert, but mm-hmm. in your opinion, pedigree doesn't make the dog?
I don't think so.
As long as it's pure American Pit Bull Terrier, it could probably do just about anything if it's bred correctly, yeah?
If it's bred correctly, yeah. I mean, I have some dogs here that don't necessarily, they're not a tight bloodline. They're what you would probably call scatterbred, and they are every bit as good, if not better, than some of the very, very tightly bred dogs that I've had. I mean, it's just hard to say. I think, and this is something that my dad has said to me for years, is that a dog or a horse or whatever you're talking about is 90% what you make of them. You can have the best bloodline in the world. But if you don't put in the work, that dog is nothing. That horse is nothing. If Secretariat lived in my backyard, he would have never done the things that he did. So, you know, you have to have something to start with, of course. You're not going to take a Chihuahua and go win Top Dog. You got to have a good baseline. But if you have a well-bred working dog that, you know, has drive, I mean, that's very important, is a dog that has the drive to want to do it. And some dogs don't. Most of them do, but some don't. I've had a few really lazy dogs that wouldn't even chase a ball or want to do much of anything, and those dogs, you know, they would never make a top dog. So you got to have a good starting point. But I mean, I think I've seen, in fact, some people with rescue dogs competing in these top dogs that have done remarkably well, and they're not even, who even knows how they're bred. So, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, I respect bloodlines. I think it's important for people, you know, some people to keep bloodlines pure and work on them if they have the time and energy and space to focus on that. Not everybody has that. I don't have that. So I take dogs from other people that I've seen that have been amazing, and then I try to make them better. So I don't know. I mean,
I gotcha. So, are your dogs for the most part are outdoor dogs?
I have 2 dogs that are exclusively outdoor dogs, and then I have 4 crate and rotate dogs.
I gotcha. Let me ask you this, because this is kind of something I was talking about in my weight video. I hear a lot about winter weight. Now, is that something that happens naturally, or do you plump them up a little bit yourself when in the winter months?
Oh no, we feed them extra in the winter time.
Okay.
The outside dogs, and I mean even the inside dogs. But I would say the inside dogs, it's more natural because they're not working as much. But the outside dogs, we definitely increase their feed.
Okay, so you have how many right now? 6?
We have 6 here at our house, and then my dad has 2, and he lives close by, and my sister has 1, and she lives close by. So we all kind of train together a lot. So
okay, and
it's really 9.
All of those are involved in the show aspect, the competition aspect?
Oh, well, sort of. Mostly mine. I have right now in training 2 of mine for Top Dog, and then Kimber, which is the little puppy I got after not having a dog for a while, the pure sorrells female. She is a conformation champion, and she is a Top Dog champion. And so one goal I have for her is to get her weight pull ace. So she is now competing. She's the only dog I have competing in weight pull. I've never really done weight pull before. I've always enjoyed watching it to a certain degree, but it's just not that exciting to me. I mean, compared to the Top Dog stuff. But in the ADBA, you can get a conformation title, you can get a Top Dog title, and you can get a weight pull title. So she got her conformation championship at 16 months old, and then at nationals in 2019 she got her Top Dog title. And so there was currently 1 dog, I think there may be 2 now in Canada, but there was 1 dog for quite a while, a male up in Canada, who has all 3 titles that are offered by the ADBA, and they call it a Triple Crown. And so I thought, well, she has 1, she has 2, let's try to get her into weight pull. So at 2 years old, I was like, okay, well, we can do this. She'll do anything. And I took her to her first weight pull event November like Thanksgiving weekend of 2019. And she placed first in Saturday and Sunday at her first weight pull event. And I was like, okay, this is going to be great. She's going to be the first dog in the United States to get this Triple Crown. Well, then COVID.
Oh,
and,
okay.
And there were no more shows for a long time. So we didn't compete at all in 2020 because there were no shows anywhere near us. And then, so the very first show that I was able to get to was over a year and a half after her first show, was in Colorado just this past June. And she didn't place because, well, the competition there was stiff and my knowledge was not. And, you know, she did okay, but she didn't do as well as she needed to. So I started working with some friends who weight pull up in Seattle, and they helped me quite a bit. And I went up to their house a time or two, and they helped me on their track and try to get it all figured out. And she did way better in Utah just, a couple of weeks ago. She got a second and a third. So we still have a long way to go, but I'm still hoping maybe I can achieve this first Triple Crown dog in the U.S. We'll see. We're going to keep plugging away at it. I mean, if shows were going on like they were prior to COVID, we would have had it by now, like a long time ago. But when you're going to 2 shows in 2 years, you're not going to rack up points too quickly.
Right. Your favorite dog you've ever owned was who?
My favorite dog I've ever owned, I was probably 17 when he was born, and his name was Bogey, and he was pretty heavy Bolio bloodline. And I took that dog with me everywhere I went, across the country. He was so smart. I trained him to do all sorts of things. He would climb up a ladder, a really high ladder at the park, and slide down the slide. He would swim across the river with me. He would climb trees. He would do pretty much anything I ever asked of him.
Okay, outside of that dog, your favorite dog would be Kimber.
Yes, Kimber has been just the very, very best dog.